You're listening to Co-op Radio 100.5 FM and coopradio.org. It's 5 o'clock and it's Metis Matters Radio time!
Views expressed and opinions given by myself, Derrick Whiteskycloud, and the host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of the CFRO 100.5 FM, your cooperative radio network, and its affiliates or sponsors.
Listen to us anywhere you travel. You can go into your Google Play Store and then download the Radio Player Canada app, and then you can listen to your favorite radio station, Co-op Radio CFRO 100.5 FM.
Welcome everybody to Metis Matters Radio and the CFRO 100.5 FM. Thank you for being part of this program and this radio station. That's actually has been one crazy month for all of us, I'm sure. But yeah, I am here, and we're going to be doing Facebook Live. We're Facebook Live, as you actually will see. Also, I'm on YouTube. I'm trying to spread myself out there as thickly as possible, not thin. So that's what I'm doing right now, folks. So I really appreciate you guys listening in, watching what we're doing, and being part of this program. There's a lot to talk about. I want to share with you folks that it has been going on for, I would say, the last few weeks. Since they've uncovered a lot of the bodies of children from the Kamloops Residential School in British Columbia here in Canada. And also, since then, they have even gone further. And what I understand, they're actually they'll be going. There's a group of people that'll be traveling all across Canada and going to every reservation, whether it's still there or been taken down or even changed into whether it's a hotel, you name it. Sometimes a museum, you name it. Like, you never know what it is. But the fact is that they're going from place to place and get permission from the people in the area. And what they're going to be doing, folks, they're going to be taking what you call a GPR, and that is a ground penetrating radar. So this is what they had done just recently. That's why they did the dig up of 215 kids, because that's what they've been using. That's what I understand it. So it's going to be actually quite an interesting stories, I guess we'll say, because it's going to really impact all of Canada, all of the First Nations children, the people that are already grown up as adults now today. A lot of them we actually have lost because it's been many, many years. And yeah, it's been really hard. So basically, I decided myself in the studio, some of you actually see me in the chat room, I am wearing a representation of the children, and also my good little friend here. I have my chat room. I got my little guy here, George, my orangutan. And so every time I everywhere I travel, folks, I take him with me because he's my great puppet. And a lot of kids love to be entertained by him. But every child does matter. And I'm not including just First Nations, Indigenous kids. I'm talking about every child does matter. Because that's what's happening right now all across this world. There have been a lot of children that have been brought up, been taken, and have been brought back home. So we are working on that right now as we speak. There's a lot of people and a lot of things happening on all over Canada. And I will call it Kanata because it's what it was labeled as at the very beginning. Or people call it Turtle Island, how you want to call it. But that's exactly what we're doing. So what I want to share with you, like I said before, they have what they're using right now. It looks like a lawnmower, and it's called a ground penetrating radar. So they run that thing back and forth like a lawnmower all over the grounds. That's why they're able to find the kids. And whatever they decide to do, whether they go inside the buildings, now they're deciding to use other types of infrared machines, or whether it's a gun, and they're going up and down the walls and the flooring and other areas. Now they're really doing their deep search. So we are going to find possibly even more than what was actually found in the Kamloops Residential School. There may be more than you know. So I'm leaving that with you folks, just as a thought. Secondly, they've actually gone to Saskatchewan. That's their next place, and they've actually went to another residential school. I won't name the name yet because they are going to different locations. And they found already one residential school in Saskatchewan. They found 80 more Indigenous First Nations kids, buried, unmarked graves. So again, that's another thing that we're going to be working on. So they're working on that as well. Now, Robert's asking in the chat room, what initiated the search? Well, here's the thing, and let me tell you guys a story because this is what's really getting me. For years and years and years, we have been trying to get the government to actually do something about it. And apparently, there are special forces, I will say, I won't name names yet, but they decided to do their own search. Special forces, special groups of people decided to do their own search. And now they're going to all of the going to the residential schools and doing the investigation for us without even our Prime Minister knowing about this. Because he has no knowledge of that whatsoever. Because anytime we've ever brought the subject up towards him or to the last Prime Minister Harper, it was always avoided. Because you remember now, folks, back in 2008, Mr. Prime Minister Harper supposedly did an apology to us for what had been done in the past. I was there. I was part of the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. I was there, and there was not one dry eye when he did the apology. When they were at the Vancouver Friendship Center, not one dry eye. There was more anger than there was tears, but there's a mixture of tears, of anger and hate, and there was so much, because that's what they kept asking for. Where are the children? We want all of this fixed. When I was at the Truth and Reconciliation in Calgary at the River Cree Resort with 250 of us from all across Canada, all across the reservations, we were down there to talk to Health Canada to basically do something about it. And they initially did nothing for us. Nothing. And I'll tell you why. The only thing, no, I take it back. They did try to pay off people who did attend residential schools. Not very few of them actually paid them off, but they also got them to sign a waiver or some sort of a release saying once you've got the money from the government, you're no longer allowed to even mention it to anyone about residential schools or how you dealt with it. No more complaints. This is what they're trying to do. And then after, when Harper left, before Harper left government, he actually, well, before he gave all of us, but apparently we were supposed to have gotten $8.3 million to do this research to help all of us, including healing programs. And not all that money was used. None of it, hardly, because what was left, he probably took, they said he possibly took about 3/4 of that money and put it into other things, other programs that had nothing to do with us. So when they lie through their teeth, as they always do, they say they're going to help us, but you don't forget, folks, over 150 years, our people suffered. They suffered. They actually suffered. And yet no one did. I mean, I can understand 150 years ago, yes. What really gets me is we're asking the government to do something about it, create some sort of healing program, healing centers for our people that are still dealing with their fear, that still dealing with their pain, still dealing with everything they dealt with, emotional trauma, psychological trauma, physical abuse, murder, death, from a lot of the priests and nuns. Because there's so many horror stories that I've actually heard from so many people in my journey with my work. And right now, to this day, they're still finding more and more and more. And they will until this is not over, folks. This is not over. And here's one thing gets me. We have people out there that say they think they know everything. Okay. And I read a newspaper column. And I want you folks to know, this is actually from the Winnipeg Sun, which I was not too impressed about regarding the person who actually wrote the column. He was a guest opinion with the Vancouver Sun, and his name is Brian Giesbrecht. Okay. Now, Brian Giesbrecht actually was a former judge. And what he is saying, he said, rushing to the judgment without all facts, talks about some questions about Kamloops. The discovery of human remains at the site of a former residential school has set off a firestorm that has already resulted in demands for another national inquiry and massively expensive forensic and excavation projects. But maybe we should take a pause and ask some questions. The Kamloops Indian Residential School operated as a residential school from 1890 to 1969. Its peak enrollment was around 500 in the 1950s, and although there was understandably been an outpouring of sympathy, it is not clear that at this point how many of the bodies detected were residential school students. It's also not clear that there was even anything sinister about the discovery. In fact, it is shocking that many people seem quite willing to accept slanderous conspiracy theories about teachers and priests murdering and secretly burying hundreds of children, and there are many forgotten cemeteries in Canada, and it is far more likely that the deaths simply reflected the sad reality of life back then. We should take a look at the history. Tuberculosis was a major killer, and it didn't spare children from 1890 until the 1950s, and it was responsible for many child deaths. Influenza was also particularly deadly disease for Indigenous people. In 1918, the Spanish flu killed a disproportionate number of Indigenous people, but even ordinary influenza was particularly deadly for them. Other diseases that have been but all disappeared now, like whooping cough, meningitis, and measles, routinely took yesterday's children, and disease took many from every demographic, but Indigenous people suffered most. They died mainly in their home communities, where the Grim Reaper was always close by. Infected children entered residential schools and infected others. Many died. In our comfortable times, we forget how hard life was 100 and more years ago. Dickens' world of chimney sweeps and the poor house. Stories are now being written about about Canada's home children, for example. These are mainly English orphans and children from poor homes who were taken from their parents and sent by themselves to Canada like children, and some as young as 7 would arrive in the cardboard signs around their necks advertising free labor, and boys would be taken by farmers and used as labor in return for their keep, and the girls would be used as domestic workers, and some received good treatment, and some were treated very badly. Many died alone and forgotten. It is a coincidence that the number of home children roughly equal the same number of children who attended the residential schools, 150,000. The home children are one example only of the sadness that was part of the lives of all poor children who had the misfortune to be born in those times, and Indigenous children suffered more than most. This historical snippet is no way migrates the importance of the Kamloops discovery, but we should consider the harshness of previous times, and before letting emotional take over good sense. The dead should be appropriately honored, but we should be mindful that some opportunists will exploit these dead children for financial and political gain. The residential school story has been exhaustively told. Canadians have heard it, and we get it. We have sympathized, and billions of dollars have been paid by people, and most of whom weren't alive then. And to people who mostly weren't either, it is time to move on. And this is the Giesbrecht, a retired judge, is a senior fellow at the Frontier Center for Public Policy. Let me tell you something, Mr. Giesbrecht. Number one, when you talk about the children that are from the England or from the European countries, my grandfather was placed into an orphanage by his mother. Okay, this is back in the early years, and it's called the Dr. Bernardo's Orphanage. Okay, by his mother, but he had also had a sister and another brother with him, and they weren't meant to come to this country, none. But because they brought them through the front door and out the back door, my great-grandmother, which she had done, she asked them to take care of them until she got better herself. Her health was not that great. And she got better, but when she came back to get her kids, they were already shipped out on the boat to Canada and or Australia and or United States. But these three came to Canada. My grandfather had told me that when he arrived there, he was 10 years of age. He didn't hang around with a sign around his neck. They've already assigned him to who he was going to be belonged to as a slave. He was put into a doghouse like a dog. So if you think you know everything, you don't know nothing. And the thing is, we talk about the children that were put into Kamloops residential school. These kids, these First Nations kids, were the most cleanest group of children because their parents knew how to take care of them. You took the red out of them, out of their heart, and destroyed them. Your society. Now, what I'm pointing out here is this. You keep on making assumptions, and yet you don't know nothing. And you saying that the government put billions of dollars into us. No, they didn't. Because Harper took it back. Nobody put any money into us. None whatsoever. Not into the First Nations, Métis, or Inuit. Hardly. They made it look good as if it was important to satisfy us, to keep us quiet a little bit, but it didn't. Because your government got very selfish and greedy, and always has been. It was never fixed. So if you think you know everything, Mr. Brian Giesbrecht, guess what? You don't know hardly a thing. For a retired judge, all you ever did, whatever your position was as a judge, you were labeling every Indian as no good. I'm telling you. you're just as much, and I wouldn't put it past if you're just as much a racist as anybody else. Because you should never even make an opinion whatsoever. None. If you say you want to help the community and the recovery of 215 kids, those 215 kids were witnessed of the deaths. And there were survivors that told their story from Kamloops Residential School and watched these kids get killed, murdered by the hands of the priests, the caretaker, and the nuns. Don't tell me you think you know everything. You don't know nothing. Apparently, what I've been told, it's very possible, because it says here, someone's sharing with me. Well, I won't say it because I won't go there with that. Because I'm a very honest person, but I'm also, it upsets me. But I'm not stupid. So if you want to see the editorial, folks, you can go on my page on Facebook. It's called under the Winnipeg Sun, Saturday, June the 5th, 2021. Like I said, and it's also about the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu has nothing to do with the kids. The Spanish flu is all to do with the same thing that's going on today. It was created as created as a foreign weapon, because that was also experimented on our children, our Indigenous children in the residential schools. Or do you know that, Mr. Giesbrecht? Oh, you didn't know that, did you? Most of these kids were experimented on by the government, and the kids refuse. They get another needle in their arm, and they're killed and put into a oven, a furnace, so they wouldn't even tell the rest of the world what happened. I know, because I have friends that told me this. They were witnesses to it. I'm so ashamed by having to read this. It's bothering me, and I thought, you know what? And what is this Charles Dickens? Charles Dickens, he tells a story. Oh, did you know, folks? Charles Dickens actually was a Freemason. So, and this judge is from Winnipeg. The Parliament building was actually built by the Freemasons. I'll leave that in your corner, folks. You think about it. Okay. So, thank you for being part of my chat room Facebook, folks. Like I said, I'm voicing a true story that was actually shared. You can go on Facebook and have a check with that editorial on the Winnipeg Sun, Saturday, June the 5th, 2021. When I read that column, I said, no way. This got to be kidding me. This is so racist of him, of this man. He's in one way, he thinks he's going to voice something and thinks he's got to, I'll tell you one thing, and I will be honest about it. Winnipeg is one of the most racist provinces in our country against our Indigenous people. It is. The police officers there, the Winnipeg City Police, they're horrible. I've seen what they've done to our people. Such abuse. Absolutely. There's just nothing but disrespect. I wouldn't put it past that the police force in Winnipeg is going to have to be readjusted, retrained. Because it's going to happen. And I'm from Manitoba. I'm from Winnipeg. I know what it's like. I grew up there. So don't tell me you think you know everything. You don't know nothing. And I saw your picture. You look like you're a man in your 40s. I'm in my 60s. Been around. I know. So Sanders says they know about these graves for many years, and the reserve finally got tired of asking for help and went ahead on their own and got the GPR themselves. Yes. It was important. Thank you very much, folks. I know they did. They got the GPR themselves, and that's how they discovered it. Because the government knows they're in deep shame. And why would they make an effort to find the rest of the bodies, our government? Because they don't want to be shamed. They can't handle it. They can't. There's no way. Saskatchewan's actually had, like, they're going to go to every province, folks, and they're going to be digging up more kids. This is just beginning. You just have the beginning of it now. Wait till the media gets a hold of this. I'm serious. And as far as Trudeau is concerned, he couldn't care less. He says he's sympathetic. How can he be sympathetic if he didn't do anything about it? You know, like, give me a break. So anyways, I have a really good friend. His name is JJ LaValle. And JJ wrote this song called Truth and Reconciliation back in 2015. It's on YouTube, folks. And then when we had this incident of the 215 kids being found, then he decided in his good heart to do a video, and it's on the BC Métis Federation page. And he re-recorded the video again, and I thought it'd be really important because he actually dedicating this to the kids and to the families, located in the grounds of the farm. And this is a powerful song, folks. When I heard it for the first time from JJ a few years back, we were up in Clearwater, and we were doing an Indigenous event. And when I was there, when JJ played that song, I was almost really in tears, almost. And but I wanted to record it. And so I want to play the song for you folks. I think it's important. And here's that song.
This video is dedicated to all of the lost voices in Kamloops and every single residential school across Canada. Why did you have to do those things you've done to me? I was just an innocent child. Why couldn't you leave me be? First you took me from my home and my family, and you told me not to speak language that was taught to me. Why did you do what you've done? Now my innocence is gone. I won't ever get those years back now. Where do we go from here? What, how, and where, how? The time for truth and reconciliation is now. Strip me of my clothes, cut off all my hair, cover me in light, and it burned me everywhere. Beat me if I didn't understand the words you said, and you forced me to sleep with one eye open, then I went to bed. So why did you do what you've done? Now my innocence is gone. I won't ever get those years back now. Where do we go from here? What, why, when, where, how? The time for truth and reconciliation is now. Creator, keep us safe. Keep us all from harm. We got a long, long way to go, though we've come so far. So where do we go from here? What, why, when, where, how? The time for truth and reconciliation is now.
Now you know. Anyways, folks, we're going to go into a little bit of a break. We'll be right back. You're listening to CFRO 109.5 FM. My show is called Metis Matters Radio. We'll be right back with you guys.
are you? You've been there forever.
Come on. You know what? You think you're the boss.
But I'm the boss here. Derrick will be right back after he gets my coffee.
Radio Vancouver, local and not so local music. A music show that tells you where and when you can see and hear live music. With band dates, live musical guests, and a few surprises too. Radio Vancouver, Wednesdays, 3:30 to 5. It doesn't just play music and go home. It's out there, absorbing it. Experience Vancouver on Facebook at facebook.com/Vancouver. Radio Vancouver, Wednesdays, 3:30 to 5 p.m. on Co-op Radio. It's fall!
Vancouver Cooperative Radio is an innovative, non-profit community radio station with a mission to produce creative and engaging programming for communities whose voices are underrepresented in the mainstream media. We need your financial support to help us achieve this mission. By donating today, you will help us to continue providing access to training and equipment for over 300 volunteers who produce 140 hours of original programming in over 10 languages. Since 1975, we've celebrated the rich cultural diversity of the Greater Vancouver area through our arts, music, and spoken word programming. Please support alternative community-based radio. You can donate today by visiting coopradio.org or calling 604-684-8494. That's 604-684-8494.
Hi, I'm Gennaro Sullivan.
And I'm Woody Morrison.
Join us every Monday from 1 to 2:30 p.m.
on When Spirit Whispers, the First Nations program.
We cover truth and reconciliation,
Art, music, politics, current and cultural events.
Give us a call, 604-684-7561. Don't forget to join us every Monday from 1 to 2:30 p.m. on When Spirit Whispers.
We're back. Thank you guys for joining me on Metis Matters Radio on the CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm your host, Derrick Whiteskycloud. And that voice you hear in the very beginning of my program is Mark, and he actually has his own show just before me. So I like using his voice. He's got that great voice of introductory. So we are here. If you want to actually watch more or listen to Mark's show, it's called Radio Vancouver. It's been going on for a lot of years. So I actually do enjoy work with Mark because both him and I have great things in common. So, anyways, so we got more to talk about, folks. And I mean, I can keep talking about the residents of schools and the recovery of it. And I can keep on doing this forever and ever because, I mean, I've been around it for a long time. But I have a few things I want to share also, too, with the Métis Nation of British Columbia. I think a lot of your listeners need to know this and viewers need to know this because there was I guess you'd say, a notice to everyone all across Canada come from the Métis Nation of British Columbia. So it's on their website. And if you want to find out, let's go to mmbc.ca. But it's on a big, huge, it says Métis governments in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario call for Clement Chartier to remove himself from all involvement with Métis National Council. Oh, did you know that? Yes, they did. Okay, so here's what happens. The presidents of the Métis Nation BC, the Métis Nation of Alberta, Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, and the Métis Nation of Ontario are calling for Clement Chartier to immediately remove himself from any and all involvement with the MNC, which is the Métis National Council, and the Métis Nation. I wonder what that's about. 4 leaders that represent 4 governing members of the Métis Nation issued a joint statement outlining reasons for Mr. Chartier to step aside. With recent and serious allegations coming to light against Mr. Chartier, listen to those words, serious allegations coming to light against Mr. Chartier. The 4 presidents agreed it is the best interest of the Métis Nation for him to immediately cease claiming to speak on the MNC's behalf, while the presumption of innocence is a universally accepted principle, and this is the only appropriate action that maintains the integrity of the Métis Nation, said the 4 presidents in the joint statement. Okay, in this respect, we were deeply troubled to see Mr. Chartier speaking for Métis women at the launch of the National Action Plan to End Violence Against Indigenous Women, Girls, and 2S LGBTQIA+ people on June 3rd. Additionally, despite repeated requests, Mr. Chartier has refused to convene a meeting of the MNC Board of Governors since December 2018. And the MNC has had no General Assembly since July 2018. Métis citizens are actively being denied their democratic right to elect their leaders, and they said in the statement, Clement Chartier's term as MNC president properly ended in 2020. Mr. Chartier also declared in 2019 that he would not be seeking re-election as MNC president. As such, Mr. Chartier has no remaining mandate as MNC president, and we do not recognize him as the current MNC president. Now, the MNC Board of Governors will convene on June the 22nd, 2021, to appoint an interim MNBC president as per the MNC bylaws until an election can be held. The Métis National Council is made up of democratically elected Métis governments in the provinces within the historic Métis homeland, the Manitoba Métis Federation, Métis Nation Saskatchewan, Métis Nation of Alberta, Métis Nation of British Columbia, and the Métis Nation of Ontario. Collectively, they constitute the General Assembly of the Métis National Council and its Board of Governors. Okay? It says here, the Métis National Council, MNC, has not held a General Assembly since July 2018, as we always said. And they show as a governing of the MNC bylaws. They've proven it on file, which is under the 6-BI, requiring a General Assembly to be held every 12 to 18 months. Additionally, and most crucially, the General Assembly elects the MNC president, with the General Assembly having not been held for 3 years. The Métis citizens are actively being denied their democratic right to elect their leaders. With no election for the position of MNC president being held since 2017, and the term of office for president being 3 years as per MNC Bylaw 8B-I. Clement Charchet's term as MNC president properly ended in 2020. Mr. Charchet also declared in 2019 that he would not be seeking re-election as MNC president. As such, it is arguable that Mr. Charchet has no remaining mandate as MNC president, and we do not recognize him as the current MNC president. Furthermore, given the recent serious allegations leveled against Mr. Charchet, it is the best interest of the nation for Mr. Charchet to remove himself from any and all public involvement with the MNC and of the Métis Nation, period. So in this respect, we are deeply troubled to see Mr. Charchet speaking for Métis women at the launch. Now, and it will repeat itself over and over again because, again, and it says at the bottom, we, the undersigned, reiterate our commitment to our nation and our citizens to secure the rightful space of the Métis Nation within the Canadian Federation. And it's signed, the acting president, Lisa Smith of the Métis Nation of British Columbia, Audrey Portois, President Audrey Portois, Métis Nation of Alberta, the President Glenn McCallum, Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, and the President Margaret Froh, Métis Nation of Ontario. Now you know. Okay. Folks, I think we got caca flying out the door here. This is going to be interesting because I'm not sure, some of you may not know, those may not be involved around the Métis much, but there are allegations going around all over the community and of Facebook and other places, and they're going all over the community, and they have been not very good allegations. I'm talking about, let's put it as in, let's use the word assault. We'll see what happens. I'm not going to go any further with it, but they're doing the investigation as we speak. I'm not sure what kind of it is or what it is, if it's a claim of, they're not of, but I will not stand on it until it's confirmed. Okay, so that's what they're doing. They're doing the internal investigation as we speak. Okay, now because basically this is what Mr. Clem Charchet was doing. He kept on saying that the Métis Nation of Ontario does not exist, and he wanted to make claim that he was the only person solely the leader of all Métis Nation, including adding in David Chartrand himself, because David Chartrand actually is the vice president of the MNC. So we shall see. Now, hey, our good friend, Mr. William D. Kootenay MC, is in my chat room, and he sent me he's got to be new songs. Good man. I'm looking forward to seeing them. Kootenay, if you want to, folks out there, if you want to know any of Kootenay MC's music, he's one of the nicest young men I ever met in my life. Brian Kootenay is actually, or William D. Kootenay. There's actually if you look up on the YouTube and type in Kootenay MC and people like them, go on our YouTube and you'll see I did one of the recordings in one of the schools they did up in here. It was a powwow that took place a few years back. But he's sitting up in the chat room that says www.reverbnation.com/unique Kootenay. Oh, this is unique. Hey, guy. How's it going? That's not Brian. That's unique. Okay, that's one of his brothers. Okay, we got him. So check it out. Check out the page, and we'll see. There's 3 brothers. I didn't look down. I was Kootenay. That's so cool. That's Bill Kootenay, William Kootenay. Okay, so yes. Now, one thing I want to share with you folks that I find is important. Now, even though, like, we talk about the Métis a lot, because a lot of the Métis actually did go to residential school just as well as other First Nations, as well as the other Indigenous folks. Inuit. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm trying to figure which one would be the best to do because I was trying to figure this one out. Okay, I think this is interesting. This is going to be interesting. Okay, the column here actually was part of CTV News, but it's called "Breaking the Wall of Silence: Collecting Forced Sterilization Testimonies from First Nations Inuit Women in Quebec." And I'm sure if it's just those two, there may be most likely Métis as well in Quebec. But I will say this: the Assembly of First Nations Quebec and Labrador is launching a new research project aimed at documenting the forced sterilization of First Nations and Inuit women in Quebec. The AFNQL is inviting First Nations and Inuit women who believe they were sterilized without their consent to come forward and share their personal experiences of those loved ones with their permission. In claims as recent as 2019, there have been numerous reports across Canada of Indigenous women receiving tubal ligations after giving birth, leaving them sterilized without their full and informed consent. On Thursday, a new report by the Senate Committee on the Human Rights stated that the coerced sterilization of Indigenous women still happens in Canada. Now, I mean, it's been going on for a long time. I remember when my mom was 16 years old, and they had a lot of the Inuit women and the First Nations women, especially in it was called the North Hill, and they called it the Mental Institute, but it wasn't a mental institute. It was a place where a lot of the Indigenous women went to recover from TB. And what they also did is they would sterilize the women, and because they believed if you sterilize them, that they wouldn't carry the TB. That was back in 1950-ish, earlier 50s, maybe late 40s, early 50s. Okay. So the research, according to the committee, most of the women interviewed for the report were coercively sterilized between 2005 and 2010, but the practice began decades earlier. Yeah, I know all about this because my mom told me this. Researchers from the University of Quebec, I'll say this correctly, it's actually in French, Université de Québec, in Abitibi-Temiscue, I believe, UQAT, and the First Nations Quebec and Labrador Health and Social Services Commission, the FNQLHSSC, will collect testimonials from the Indigenous women who were forced or coerced into sterilization or suffered obstetric violence in Quebec. This is not something that people just come forward and say it like that. A lot of times, too, people didn't even know that they had that done. So we're trying to bring the light on that, and say Marjolaine Seo, the executive director of the FNQLHSSC, told us the CTV's Your Morning on Friday. According to the press release, the testimonials will give researchers an opportunity to document the circumstances in which these medical procedures might have been performed in order to identify certain trends, if there are any. Ghislaine Picard, the chief of the AFNQL, said that these medical procedures were aimed at a slowdown in the First Nations birth date, and these decisions were imposed against the values of these women. And today, I hope that with all the wall of silence will be broken, because women will finally be listened to, and the research will provide a portrait of what some of these women have been through in the hospitals, and finally make the truth known, he said in the press release. Now, the researchers said that they launched the project in Quebec after the provincial government there chose not to participate in a federal working group created in 2018 to examine claims that Indigenous women were sterilized against their will. Now, in January 2019, a spokesperson for Quebec's health minister at the time, Danielle McCann, said the province is very sensitive to the issues of coerced sterilization and is already having talks with a number of First Nations in Quebec. They also noted that health care is within provincial jurisdiction. Susie Basile, who actually leads the Canada Research Chair on Indigenous women's issues at the UQAT, said in the press release that there is a glaring lack of relevant data on this topic in Quebec. In light in these facts, it seemed essential to us to compile a portrait of the situation in order to better understand it and measure its impacts, she said. Sioe said it's important to gather evidence of these procedures, and so they can bring them to both provincial and federal governments in order to work together to make systemic change. Now, with all it's all about working with the professionals, working with the system and the health system, and changing things, she said in an emailed statement to CTV. A spokesperson for the Indigenous Services Canada said that they were working with provincial and territorial governments, professional colleges, Indigenous partners, and women to increase safety and respect to the Indigenous women in the Canada's healthcare system. Now, working with our partners to address the coerced and forced sterilization is part of the broader imperative to eliminate the systemic racism, improve cultural safety, ensure informed consent, and reduce the barriers that Indigenous people, and particularly Indigenous women, face when assessing health services, the spokesperson had said. Sioe said that she hopes that the project will bring awareness to the issue so that people will know what's happened to these Indigenous women and prevent it from happening again. More now, people are hearing the true story, she said. First Nations have been doing a lot, even when they didn't have the means to do that. So the work is ongoing. We can't let it go. We have to move forward, and we need everybody to be part of it. We need your help. The research group is collecting testimonials from First Nations and Inuit women in Quebec from May the 17th until August the 31st. For those who would like more information on how to provide a testimonial, and the organization asked that they visit imposedsterilization.cssspnql.com. If you want to check it out, you're more than likely to have a look on the page itself, or just refer back to it again. Okay. The CTV News, breaking the wall of silence, collecting forced sterilization testimonials for First Nations Inuit women in Quebec. And the story was written by Jackie Dunham. Not Jeff Dunham, but Jackie Dunham. Okay. So, interesting. So, folks, it's, my mother talked about forced sterilization. I mean, we've heard that before, because I know very well, I've been hearing it even through residential school survivors, that they were even talking about a lot of people, a lot of kids were even sterilized. So it's not the first time. I mean, this has been going on for a long, long time. Let's see here. I want to make it short and brief editorial to call it the evening. Most Canadians say the church to blame for residential school tragedies poll. This is some city news. City news. Let's see here. A new survey suggests that 2/3 of the Canadians believe the churches that ran residential schools should bear responsibility for the abuses against children, including deaths that happened there. The online survey by Ledger and the Association for Canadian Studies, who carried out about a week after the Semk First Nation and band that said ground penetrating radar has detected and what are believed to be remains of the 215 children at a former residential schools in Kamloops. Over more than a century, some over 150,000, now they're saying over 150,000, not just 150,000 First Nations, Métis, and Inuit children were forcibly sent to government-funded church-operated schools, where many suffered abuse and even death. 60% of the respondents to the survey say the church is responsible for the tragedies that took place at residential schools in Canada, while 34% say the federal government should be blamed. The online survey of 1,539 adult Canadians were conducted from June the 4th to the 6th and cannot be assigned a margin of error because internet-based polls are not considered random. So, Ledger Vice President Andrew N. said that the fact that the majority of Canadians blame the church for what happened at the residential schools comes as President Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, well, he thinks himself as the president. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has called on the Catholic Church to take responsibility for its role in Canada's residential school system. In some respects, I think the Prime Minister may have been onto something in terms of encouraging the church to do a little bit better on this file, and said, I'm not going to go any further than that, because basically I already know Trudeau hasn't even making the effort, because we haven't heard back at all. So they'll say, oh, I think he's trying. No, he's not. He doesn't care. Anyways, you'll find out. That is on a different show in the chat room there, my friend Bob Tom. So we'll talk about that tomorrow night. How about that? So, anyone else that would like to talk about this, folks, if you want to get a hold of me, actually, I'm on. You can always email me if you have any other editorials or stories you want to share, even including those who are survivors of residential schools. If you want to voice your opinion or share a call with me on the program, I'm on every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. If you guys ever want to share your information or even tell a story, or if you don't want to come on the program, that's fine. If you want to share something with me about your story, we'd love to hear from you. You can go to metismattersradio@gmail.com. Okay, so we are going to go out with Andy DeJarlis, the Manitoba's special. This guy here he was around for a long, long time. So I want to let you guys know, Kuapitanina, take care of each other. We'll talk to you guys next week. CFRO 100.5 FM.
Listen to us anywhere you travel. You can go into your Google Play Store and then download the Radio Player Canada app, and you can listen to your favorite radio station, Co-op Radio CFRO 100.5 FM.